What's up, guys? Coach Simmons here, back for episode number 6 of Jog Your Mind. We're in season 2 here, and if my math is correct and we do 12 episodes per season, that puts us halfway through the season. How are things going? How are things feeling? You know, I try to do these episodes in a way that look at the landscape of what I'm experiencing as a coach that lives on the sidelines with a lot of high school athletes. I work with athletes all over the U.S. this time of year, and whether that's helping them from a psychological mental prep standpoint or coaching them one-on-one because they don't have a team or their team is really, really small. And with that work, what I have begun to notice, is that athletes are getting tired, and maybe we're even getting a little bit burnt out. And it's not just you. It's a little bit of everybody. We've kind of hit the middle of the season rut, and we find ourselves kind of struggling because we want to keep working really hard, because we want to continue to PR, but we're struggling because our body is screaming for a little bit of a break. And if you're like everybody else, spring break was not that. It was not a break. It was traveling. It was going somewhere warm. It was seeing friends. It was doing pretty much anything but resting. And you probably trained while you were on vacation. You're probably doing it while you were on break. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to use your break to train. But being able to understand when your body needs a break, that's the big thing. That's our big focus of this episode. And one of the big things I want to talk about is the idea that fear is a mile wide, but it's an inch deep. And the reason I say that is quite often when we're dealing with something, whether it's the fear of racing or the fear of actually backing off, when we have to walk that mile, so to speak, we often think that we're going to take that first step and we're instantly going to sink in way above our head, when the reality is that it's only an inch deep. And it's really just a puddle. It's not the giant ocean that we think it is. And what I find is that most athletes fear taking a step back because there's a fear of loss. I often kind of think of what they're experiencing as that giant rolling ball in the Indiana Jones movie when he's trying to run away. And that fear is not just the fear of loss, of slowing down and maybe not getting a PR or losing out on a race opportunity. That ball also contains all of your commitments to friends, to the schoolwork, to all of the college prep, and having performances that are important. What I find with a lot of my junior year kids and even my senior year kids is now all of a sudden the performances weigh a whole lot more, and they weigh on you. Is that if you have a bad performance your junior year that was equivalent to the same performance sophomore year, where you maybe came up a little bit short, it hurts a lot more junior year or even senior year. Why? Because now you've placed more pressure on it. You've told yourself, well, colleges are looking at me now and I have to look good for them. And so that bad performance shows bad on me. But here's the reality of the situation, guys. Those bad performances are real for everybody. It's not like you go to college and all of a sudden every performance you have is perfect. Go ask anybody who is a freshman in college and running. And if they are running and aren't redshirting, they're going to tell you that it's a wave that you're riding all season long. If you listen to the last couple episodes, you'll be reminded that in college you get less opportunities to race. And so when you go out and you have a bad performance, it's kind of about that next performance and making sure that you're doing what you need to do to show up ready to perform. So I figured that this week's episode would be best if we talked about how do we actually recover and give you guys some strategies and a couple things to think about. Because if you're someone who is struggling to show up at your best for your performances, it may not be a product of you not being strong enough mentally. It may just mean that you're under recovered and that you actually need to take a step back to take a step forward. And I know that kind of logic doesn't always make sense rationally, but rarely do we think rationally first. We usually think about what we're going to lose before we can really see how it's going to impact us and help us gain. One of the biggest things that I think has made an impact on me as a business owner, as a coach, and someone who coaches young adults is the idea of small breaks. This doesn't have to be a 1 to 3 day break, but it can be. It can be as long as that. It can be kind of like a short reset, over a long weekend, or even just after having a couple of, big races. Taking a step back can be really helpful. But it can also just mean 10 minutes. It can mean 10 minutes when you're going from school to practice and just getting 10 minutes to yourself, putting on some headphones, closing your eyes, and just trying to reset and be able to give some distance between all of the things that you have to get done and going to practice and focusing on what's there. I often have heard kids talk about the fact that they show up to practice feeling overwhelmed, and they're carrying all of the stuff from school that they need to do, and they're taking it into practice. And the reality is no matter how hard you try to study during practice, you're not going to get a better grade because you're trying to memorize your biology terms during your 400 meter reps. Be in the moment and give focus to the thing that you want to do really well in, because otherwise you're giving kind of, half of yourself to practice, half of yourself to studying, when you'd be better off focusing on practice. And then when practice is done, move into studying. Don't try to do two things at once. These small little breaks are a great way to kind of set a hard line for the day. The other thing that I found to be super helpful is just creating a list. This seems like a very simple and benign thing to do, but having a list and taking that list one step further and putting due dates behind it can help you conceptualize all of the things that you may have to get done. Because if you just make this huge long list of things that you need to get done, your body is going to prioritize all of those equally. And if these are things that have to get done now or things that have to get done in a month, your body isn't going to see it that way. It's going to go, oh my God, look at all this we have to do. And then we go into panic mode and we're just, going crazy and we're stressing out. When the reality is that maybe 3 of the 30 things that you have to do need to get done today. And then the next 3 to 5 of those things need to get done by the end of the week and then by the end of the month. And we're able to compartmentalize those things a little bit better. But this practice is the same thing that we have to be able to do when we race. If we have a race in the morning, that's important, but the one that we want to really, really do well in is in the afternoon. We don't let maybe a mid-grade or poor performance in the morning completely topple us for the race that we really want to do in the afternoon. It can be easy to compartmentalize the things that you want to do and very difficult to compartmentalize the things that you don't want to do so much, like homework, writing essays, doing those things for college prep. They may not be fun, but they're still things you need to get done. The next thing here, it's about changing the stimulus. One of the big things that I see athletes needing to do more of, and one thing that I've found success in this year as a coach in working with my athletes, is changing the stimulus and even offering different stimuluses in a way that allows my athletes to get more aerobic work in without the impact of mileage. One of the biggest places of success for athletes is being able to increase your mileage. If you go from 35 miles a week to 45 miles a week, quite often you're going to see an equivalent return in your performance. But if you find that once you hit 35 miles a week, that you get injured or constantly find yourself just being exhausted, maybe it's worth backing off to 30 miles a week and filling your time with other things like swimming or cross-training on an elliptical or cycling, or simply doing other things like yoga or just working on your mobility instead of looking at it as mileage equals performance. That's kind of the level 1 thinking when it comes to training. Finding other ways to get stimulus is a great way for a growing body to be able to improve performance without increasing risk for injury. I rarely see athletes get injured cross-training. I see a lot of injuries happen because of running and trying to increase mileage either too quickly or they're not dropping back down and allowing their body to absorb the training. And that's the beauty of cross-training, is that you can still get a great aerobic stimulus without the bone impact. And so if you're someone that's experiencing, bone injuries or you've been susceptible to them, it may be better for you to add in an hour or 2 hours a week of cross-training and replacing 45 minutes to an hour and a half of running and getting the same benefit. I follow a rule of 1.3 to 1.5. If you're going to go do a 40-minute run and you're feeling, I'm going to cross train today, it's probably a 60-minute ride or, a 50 to 60-minute elliptical. But you need to be able to hit the same heart rate for those to be effective. Going and doing an easy elliptical is not equivalent to an easy run. You're going to have to increase the effort a little bit because that impact stimulus is still an important part of running. And so we have to extend it somewhere. And that's usually in terms of time or intensity to be able to get the same result. That said, cross-training is not the only thing we can think about in terms of changing stimulus. We can think about trying to change up where we're running. We can change up the days of the week that we're normally doing things. If you're always doing your strength training on Tuesday, maybe go to a class on Wednesday with some friends and do a fun yoga class or things like that. It can just be a refreshing way to just mix things up and not feel like you're stuck in the monotony of the training cycle. The last piece here is actually having recovery practices. There's passive and active recovery. Passive would just be putting on a pair of Normatec boots and sitting down in a chair and doing your homework for a half an hour. It's great. Those boots do feel really good, but they aren't always going to take care of all of your problems. They aren't magic. You're going to have to do some active recovery. And active recovery can be a 30-minute shakeout spin after a really hard workout in the morning. But it can also be taking time to actually foam roll more than just your quads for 2 minutes and calling it good. Getting in there, finding the tough spots, and even setting something as simple as a timer for 15 minutes and allowing yourself that, yes, you can scroll on your phone, but you still need to be doing a good job and not just getting distracted and stopping while you're replying to your friends. This needs to be something that is intentional. So it may even be worthwhile to throw away the phone for a little bit and put on a YouTube video and watch that and catch up on that instead of staring at your phone if you find yourself stopping while you're foam rolling. Ask me how I know, because I've watched all of you guys foam roll in the gym. Also, having a good hydration and nutrition plan. One of the biggest areas of success that I've seen for both my late high school and early college athletes is actually meal prep and meal planning. This has become a bit more popular on social media as of late, which means that there's plenty of recipes for all of you guys to find. But taking an hour and a half to 2 hours on Sunday and making your rice, your chicken, whatever those things are that you want to eat throughout the week so that you have a great meal, especially if you have a crazy schedule, that's a great way to set yourself up for success. But if you're not eating the right things and you're not hydrating enough during the day, no amount of cross-training will save a bad diet and a poor hydration plan. And the good thing is future episodes, we're going to dive into this. But I think it's really important that if you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, I could probably improve my nutrition or hydration plan, I'm just going to encourage you guys to be conscious of what you're doing right now. It doesn't have to be perfect. With that said, know when you need a day off. This is kind of my last point when it comes to this idea, is that do not fear taking a day off. Don't fear it at all. Just because that ball is rolling behind you and you feel like you're going to get steamrolled by it and you feel like you're going to lose out and you're not going to be able to PR this season and all these other things, taking that day off to catch up on life, if you feel like you're behind, is going to set you up for success, because you're going to be able to go into that next race knowing that you're caught up, and that huge list of to-dos got a lot shorter because you took a day to focus on those things. With that said, it's the end of episode 6. I look forward to seeing you guys for number 7.